And joining me now is House Republican Floor Leader Representative Jacquelin Maycumber. Thank you for the opportunity on the last day of the legislative session here. I want to get your take on public safety. Your background involves, you were a police officer.
Yes.
So where do you stand on the legislation related to, let's talk about the police pursuit bill first, then we can talk about the Blake ruling response.
Absolutely. You heard the cries of our community since we have, the legislature changed public safety 2 years ago. Seen an increase in crime, 90% increase in auto thefts, increase in violent crime. Really, law enforcement haven't been able to do their job. We restricted vehicle pursuits, as you have seen, and the legislature came back to fix that. Unfortunately, the policies that passed were only about 10% of what was formally done just 2 years ago for the safety of our community. So just a really small amount of crimes that could be pursued, and infrequently are. You don't really see pursuits on major crimes like that. They aren't happening in the moment. So really what passed is a small step into making our community safer for where we were just a few years ago. And that's really what we need to look at as we move forward, allowing law enforcement officers to stop people who are committing crimes. And you've seen some of the really sad stories, and we've lost lives because law enforcement officers cannot pursue. So as we move forward, we want to make sure that those crimes are able to be pursued and law enforcement officers can do their jobs, and we are safer in our communities because of that.
And then briefly, from your perspective in your district, what are the categories of crimes that constituents are talking about if they're talking about crimes?
Oh, absolutely. Everything from vehicle thefts to property crimes, and you're really seeing just some really heinous activities occur. I mean, we've had a double homicide in Okanagan where law enforcement weren't able to pursue a suspect at the time because of policies that passed here. So you're really seeing these really unfortunate activities that occurred. You saw the death in Puyallup of the young girl. We need to make sure that law enforcement can do their jobs, and that's what you're hearing from people all around the state of Washington. Crime has skyrocketed and they want to be safe.
The Blake bill, the Blake response bill, relates to the state Supreme Court ruling that invalidated the drug possession law, and the law that was passed to replace it set to expire. What's your perspective on the most recent incarnation of a change to that statute?
Well, it's continuously ongoing, but really what we need to make happen is we need to make sure the usage of drugs, especially these fentanyl, heroin, and methamphetamine, it is somehow those individuals who are in addiction get help. And that starts with stopping that cycle of addiction, and that starts with the judicial system and a gross misdemeanor. I had a bill, House Bill 1415, that was just very simple, a page and a half, that said put knowingly back into the RCW and let law enforcement engage and get those people the help they need, whether that is through a therapeutic court or a drug court. Unfortunately, right now, we have a large policy that is continuously moving as we speak that talks about allowing paraphernalia to be given out in communities without notice, not allowing people to continue through therapy or rehab centers, and making sure that people have the opportunities to get clean. Number one issue, save lives. Number one issue, protect communities. And that's what we need to look at as we are talking throughout today. And I'm sure the last interview of the day will have something different with Blake, because that has been the top issue for this sine die.
There is a bill that also has been getting quite a lot of attention. It's contentious. There are really strong supporters, very outspoken opponents of legislation related to parental notification for youth in shelters, or for youth who are seeking shelter away from home. And at what point the parents should be notified. The arguments in favor of this legislation say it's about giving people a safe place to go. These young people, running from abusive situations, a place that they need shelter from, giving them a realistic shot at that. What's your perspective on it?
Well, the most important thing about that policy, when we were talking about 5599, was that there was an amendment that said if a child is seeking one of these host homes, which is not a foster home under the state of Washington definition, are they safe? Do the parents know? Are the parents currently looking for them? Is that an abusive situation? Because if it is, it goes through the foster care system and DCYF, and we have a system in place for the safety of that child. So number one, the safety of that child. Is that child safe if the parents don't know where they are? And do the host families take responsibility for that child if they run away, if they go onto the streets? So where is that child, and where is the responsibility of the safety? Number one, making sure that child has a safe environment to be and the parents are notified. And if there is no abuse, then we need to notify those parents where that child is at that time. It's the most important thing, that somebody is advocating for that child.
Switching gears here, you have been an outspoken opponent of a policy that would charge drivers by the mile as opposed to at the gas pump in terms of fuel tax to pay for road infrastructure. The road usage charge policy, as it's styled, could, theoretically take different forms, whether that be some sort of a GPS tracking device or manually reporting an odometer at set times throughout the year. The proponents say that this is a way for the state to make up the money they're going to lose over time in gas tax revenue with the electrification of vehicles and as vehicles become more fuel efficient. What's your perspective on it?
Well, people are seeing the prices at the pump go way up, and we're talking direct and indirect, right? So you have the gas tax, which is a direct cost, and indirect tax that has been on the barrel or many other aspects in added to it with our policies, including the CCA that is added to it. So now what's happening to do a road usage charge or vehicles mile travel charge, you're really penalizing those people that don't live closer to where they work, which is more of a high income to live closer to your jobs and the communities, are those lower income people, and putting on the backs of them. Right now, if we had a policy to move the vehicle sales tax into the dedicated transportation fund, which is a protected fund, we would make that up, and we would not be putting the fund on the backs of the people who are suffering the most, right? The backs of the people who are living further away, who are having a harder time driving to work every day. Those rural people, the low income people, those are the people that don't live as close to their jobs. And we're really harder to get to work, harder to get to school, and harder to get to their healthcare centers. So really focusing on a way to supplement that is the sales tax, vehicles male sales tax. We could do that, move that into transportation instead of the general fund, and then protect those people. And that's what we should be looking about. We talk about in billions of dollars. We should be talking about in the cost of bread and the cost of soccer shoes, because those are the people we represent, and those are the people that are really suffering when we talk about these policies.
So just to kind of follow up on that, the proponents say that if, for example, the State Transportation Commission says at 2.5 cents per mile, people with less fuel-efficient vehicles, in particular maybe rural drivers who have maybe larger vehicles or less fuel-efficient vehicles in some respects, might actually save money as compared to the gas tax, assuming that it's a swap and a replacement for the gas tax instead of an add-on. What do you think about the policy, the concept of the switch, and do you think that would likely save people money in the long run?
Effectively, right now, we're not going to be doing a switch. We can't really do a switch. That would be an extensive long-term program that would occur. And so if you're sitting idle in a city, letting your engine run while you're in traffic on 405 or I-5, are you expending more carbon emissions than somebody creating our food and trying to get to work and then transport our food, right, from the rural areas, or driving to from their home to the doctor? So the question is, what is your value? If the money is there in the general fund, why are we continuously trying to put it on the backs of the people that can afford it the least? If you're living in that rural area that you mentioned, and somehow that would be reduced, which it hasn't been, if you talk about indirect barrel taxes, then those people will suffer the most. And we're not reducing right now, that is not in place because we have to move to our transportation projects. So the concern is protecting those people who are suffering the most and that are paying the most. And really, if you have the funds, let's move them over to the transportation budget. That's the most important thing. Let's do that and then really benefit everybody by reducing those charges. If you have the funds, reduce those charges for everybody.
Do you think that state policies are playing a role in the prices people pay for gasoline?
Well, they have. I mean, that's why we have the sticker on the pump every day you see that says Washington State gas tax. I mean, that occurred because a legislator said, hey, we need to see how much the state is increasing it. I think, what is Washington State? One of the top 5 gas taxes in the nation. I mean, you hear it every day. The governor says to reduce travel. It's just one of the things that you continuously hear. So if that is being taxed, we need to make sure that we protect those people who are paying those taxes. The cost in food, the cost in goods and services is because of an indirect cost of that cost of transportation.
We are almost out of time here, but I want to ask about your apprenticeship program. How would this program work?
Oh, this is a great program. It's like Running Start for the trades. 50% of kids in school do not graduate and go on to a 4-year university. They want to have somewhere to go. It's a hope bill for those kids that leave school and don't have a direction. Why aren't we giving them a living wage job and training them while they're in high school? This bill had 58 co-sponsors, bipartisan. It was signed in by the governor, and right now it does 5 regional pilots, and it really looks at providing skills in the apprenticeship trades for young adults in high school, young kids in high school, and show them what they're possible, what they can do. A lot of kids don't know what skills they have, and they're told, well, why don't you move to an urban area? By the way, housing is very difficult to find right now, and then you can learn your skill. Kids need to know that in high school. Kids need to know that they have that skill when they leave and a job to go to. So I'm very excited about this policy. It's been funded, it's been signed into law, and I'm really excited about the pilot projects and really moving forward to making sure every kid knows what they're good at and has the ability to move forward into a living wage job for their future while they're in high school. And that's the most important part.
Well, we're going to have to stop there. Thank you very much, Representative Jacquelin Maycumber, House Republican Floor Leader. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.